Lena Bradford had exactly 17 minutes to breathe before the luxury real estate tour began, and she was already regretting her choice of heels. The sun reflected off the glassy exterior of the $12 million Bel Air estate behind her, and she gave one last glance at her clipboard before tossing it into the passenger seat of her white Range Rover. This was her first solo high-end listing. No co-host, no senior agent shadowing her, just Lena, one massive estate and a group of potential buyers all expecting champagne, charm, and a flawless pitch. She straightened her blazer and whispered, "Please let them be normal." They weren't. The first couple arrived in a Rolls-Royce and barely acknowledged her. The second man asked if the marble in the foyer was imported from Tuscany and scoffed when she said it was Spanish. The third woman brought a miniature dog in a designer bag and complained about the lack of ocean view despite the house being in the hills. And then he showed up. She didn't see him at first. She just heard a low, smooth voice behind her as she was pointing out the infinity pool to an older couple. "Is that Carrara marble on the counters or something custom?" Lena turned and her brain stalled. The man standing there wasn't what she expected. He wasn't in a suit like the others. He wore a black t-shirt that fit too perfectly, jeans that probably cost more than her rent, and sunglasses he slowly removed as he looked at her. "Carrara," she managed, blinking. He held her gaze. "Classic, clean, doesn't try too hard." Neither did he. "I'm Lena Bradford," she said, offering her hand. "I'm hosting the tour." "Zayden Langston," he replied, shaking her hand. His grip was firm, warm. "I'm interested in the house," she asked, trying to sound professional. He smiled slightly. "We'll see." Lena cleared her throat and gestured toward the doors. "Well, welcome inside. This estate has 7 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a private screening room, a fully equipped gym, and Zayden didn't follow right away. He stood still, watching her like he was trying to figure out a puzzle she didn't know she was presenting. "You live around here?" he asked. She blinked again. "No, I can't afford a mailbox in this zip code." His laugh was deep and real. "Fair enough." She tried not to look at him as she led the group through the house, but it was impossible. He was always just behind her shoulder, always listening, always asking the right questions, not like the others who were pretending to know what they were talking about. Zayden knew real estate. She could tell. His eyes scanned the finishes, the structure, the layout like he'd seen better or maybe even built better. When the others filtered out to the terrace for champagne and catered appetizers, Zayden stayed near the fireplace, running a hand along the stone. "This place has good bones," he said quietly. "It was redone by a top developer in the area," Lena offered. "I know, he's a friend. He told me to come see it." She raised a brow. "So you're not just browsing?" Zayden looked at her again, that same calm intensity in his eyes. "Let's just say." "I'm looking for something specific." "And what's that?" he shrugged. "Haven't figured it out yet, but I'll know it when I see it." There was something about the way he said it. It wasn't just about the house. Lena stepped back, trying to regain her footing. "If you'd like to schedule a private showing, I'd like that," he cut in, his voice low. "With you," she swallowed. "Of course, I can arrange that." He gave her one last look before slipping on his sunglasses and heading toward the others. "I'll be in touch." But he didn't wait. When the tour ended and the last guest left, his car was still in the driveway, a sleek, matte black Aston Martin that looked like it belonged in a Bond film. He stood beside it, hands in his pockets. "I was hoping you'd have a minute." Lena hesitated. "For what?" A question. "Off the record." She crossed her arms. "Okay." Zayden leaned against the car. "Are you always this good at pretending you're not nervous?" That threw her. "I'm not nervous," she lied. "You are," he said softly. "But it looks good on you." Her cheeks warmed. "Is this your strategy? Flatter the agent into a better deal?" "No, I don't negotiate with people I like." That shut her up. He tilted his head slightly. "Have dinner with me." "What? Dinner tonight? Nothing fancy, just real." She stared at him. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Lena hesitated. Every instinct told her to say no. She never mixed business and personal. But she also never had a man like Zayden Langston ask her to dinner like it was the most normal thing in the world. He stepped closer. If you say no, I'll still buy the house. I'll still work with you, but if you say yes, we'll see what happens, she exhaled. Where? I'll pick you up at 7. I didn't say yes. But you didn't say no. And then he got in his car and drove away, leaving Lena standing in the driveway of a $12 million mansion, heart racing and heels suddenly feeling just fine. That night, he showed up at her apartment in a charcoal gray suit with no tie, holding a bouquet of white tulips. You remembered I said I hate roses, she said, surprised. I remember everything, he replied. Dinner was at a rooftop restaurant in downtown LA with city lights glittering in every direction. He ordered wine without asking the price, charmed the waiter, and made her laugh so hard she forgot how nervous she'd been. And when he walked her to her door, he didn't kiss her. He just looked at her like she was something rare. I wasn't looking for this, he said quietly, but I can't stop thinking about you. She stared at him. Zayden, you don't even know what I want, he smiled. Then tell me. And I'll make it happen. Lena closed the door that night with her heart pounding and her world tilting, and not because of the wine. She was hosting a luxury real estate tour. She didn't know the buyer would be a millionaire falling fast right into her. Lena wasn't expecting to see Zayden again so soon, not less than 48 hours later, standing at the edge of her brokerage's monthly networking event like he belonged there. He wasn't on the guest list. Only agents, developers, and select clients were invited. Yet there he was, leaning against the bar in a navy shirt rolled at the sleeves, speaking to her managing broker like they were longtime friends. She approached with measured steps, clutching her wine glass tighter than necessary. I didn't realize this was open to the public, she said, stopping beside him. Zayden glanced at her, that same unreadable gaze flickering over her. It's not. I was invited. By who? Victor, he said, nodding toward the broker, who gave her a quick grin and a thumbs up before disappearing into the crowd. Of course. Victor had a habit of keeping his high-end clients close, and Lena clearly hadn't realized just how close Zayden was. I thought we agreed on dinner, not full integration into my professional life, she said, raising one brow. He turned toward her fully. You said you wanted to keep things professional. So I thought I'd see what your world looks like from the inside. You could have asked. I could have, he agreed, but I wanted to see how you handle surprises. Her pulse ticked faster. And you're balancing a glass in one hand and sarcasm in the other. Seems like you're doing fine. Before she could respond, another agent breezed past and touched her arm. Lena, we need you by the back patio. The potential buyers from New York just arrived. She gave Zayden a quick glance. Duty calls? I'll be here, he replied without hesitation. She didn't see him again until dusk, when the sky was streaked with gold and the conversations around her had turned to vacation homes and mortgage leverage. He came to her side silently, handing her a bottle of chilled water without a word. She took it. Thank you. You've been talking for 2 hours straight. I figured you needed it. Lena studied him. Why are you really here? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out over the city skyline, his expression unreadable. There's an investment group I'm pulling out of. They've been pushing for me to back one of their high-rise builds in West Hollywood. It's overpriced, underdesigned, and they're ignoring every red flag I raise. So you're cutting ties. I'm buying them out. Her brows lifted. That's not exactly a small move. It's necessary. Why tell me? Zayden turned to her then. Because I want you to find the next project for me, something worth building from the ground up. She blinked. You want me to scout land? I want you to do more than sell houses. You have an eye for what people want before they even know they want it. That's rare. Lena stepped back slightly. You don't know the first thing about how I work. I know enough to let you prove me right. A breeze swept through the patio, lifting her hair across her cheek. He reached and tucked it behind her ear gently, like he'd done it before. I didn't bring you tulips tonight, he said quietly, but I did bring something else. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Inside was a set of property photos from a parcel of land in Topanga Canyon untouched, nestled between ridges with permits pending and zoning already cleared. "It's off-grid. Not listed yet," he said. "I pulled strings. If you want it, it's yours to represent." She opened the folder slowly, the weight of it sinking in. "You're serious. I don't do things halfway. You'll have full commission, full creative input, and no strings." Her heart thudded in her chest. "Why give this to me?" "Because you're not like the others. You're not chasing the next deal to impress someone. You actually care about what you're building." Lena held his gaze. "And what happens if I say yes? Then we start tomorrow. And if I say no, I'll find someone else. But I won't be interested in the project anymore." A silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Around them, the party buzzed on, but it felt like they were in their own orbit. She closed the folder and looked up at him. "I'll take a look at it in the morning." "No promises." "That's all I wanted," he said, stepping back. Later that night, Lena sat in her apartment with the folder spread across her kitchen table. The land was perfect. Remote, but not inaccessible. Potential for something luxurious but grounded. And it wasn't just the land, it was the way Zayden had offered it to her. Not as a favor, as a challenge. She didn't sleep much. The next morning, she drove out to the canyon before sunrise. Mist clung to the ground, and the air was cool with the scent of pine and earth. As she stepped onto the edge of the plot, the quiet wrapped around her like a promise. Her phone rang. She answered before thinking. "Yes." There was a pause, and then Zayden said, "I didn't ask anything yet. You were going to. The answer's yes." He exhaled once. "Good. I'll have contracts drawn up." She hung up and stood still, letting the silence of the land settle into her bones. This wasn't just a project, it was a beginning. And Zayden Langston wasn't just a buyer anymore. He was something else entirely, and she didn't know if that thrilled her or terrified her more. Lena adjusted her sunglasses as she stepped onto the loose gravel path that led toward the foundation markers. The canyon air was cooler this morning, the sky overcast. She had barely slept again, not from nerves, but from the wildfire of ideas that had started burning through her mind the moment she'd seen that land. Zayden was already there, crouched near a flagged stake, deep in conversation with a man holding a weather-beaten clipboard. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. No greeting, no smile, just a subtle shift in his posture, like her presence had changed the air pressure. "You're early," he said, standing. "So are you?" "I like to see things before the distractions arrive." She nodded toward the man beside him. "This one of those distractions. This is Cal. He handles structural feasibility for me. Quiet, thorough, doesn't waste time." Cal gave her a brief nod and returned to his notes. Lena walked past them both, scanning the perimeter. The land sloped gently toward a dense wall of trees, and from the edge you could just make out the winding road far below. She took a breath and turned to Zayden. "I want a design that disappears into this. No overbuilt facade, no glass fortress. Something that breathes with the canyon." "I already assumed that," he replied. "That's why I gave it to you." She ignored the slight rush in her chest and focused on the task. "I know 2 architects who might align with this, but they don't do spec homes. They'll need to know it's a personal project." Zayden stepped toward her. "It is. Then you need to be in those meetings. They'll expect input." "I'll be there," he said. Every time, she studied him. "You don't seem like the type to hand over creative control." "I'm not." "Then why give it to me?" He tilted his head slightly. "Because I'm not building just another property. I'm building something I might want to live in." There it was. No hesitation, no deflection. "You'd actually live out here." "I've lived in too many places that looked perfect on paper and felt like nothing." Lena turned back to the view, letting that settle. "You're not who I thought you were. No one ever is." She looked at him again. "What do you want this place to feel like?" He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice had dropped a notch. "Somewhere nobody expects to find me." The words hung in the air longer than they should have. She broke the silence. "I'll set the meetings. And I need you to trust my process." "I do," he said simply. Later that afternoon, she sat across from him at a corner table in a quiet cafe tucked into a narrow Venice alley. It wasn't the kind of place she expected him to pick rustic chairs, mismatched plates, and no valet in sight, but he ordered for both of them without checking the menu. "I didn't take you for the type to eat off anything that wasn't imported ceramic," she said, stirring her coffee. "I'm not particular about dishes, I'm particular about people." She leaned back slightly. "And what exactly am I to you?" He folded his hands on the table. "Someone who doesn't flinch when I push, someone who understands silence better than small talk." She tilted her head. "That your version of a compliment?" "No," he said. "That's me being honest." The conversation shifted after that, fast, real. He asked about her first apartment, and she told him about the mold-infested studio above a bakery that kept her up all night with the smell of burnt sugar. He asked about her father, and she told him he'd disappeared before she could walk. He didn't flinch, didn't pity, just listened. When she asked about his family, he hesitated for the first time. "My brother's dead," he said, voice flat. She sat up straighter. "I'm sorry." "I'm not," he said. "He made choices. They caught up with him." She didn't ask for details. He didn't offer any. Later, as they walked back to her car, he stopped suddenly. "I don't want to wait until this house is finished to know where I stand with you." She blinked. "I don't know what that means." "It means I've spent a long time building walls with my name on them. I think I'm ready to build one without it." She crossed her arms. "You're not making this easy." "I'm not trying to." He stepped closer. "You're not here because of a listing. You're here because you didn't walk away." Her voice was low. "Don't make this something it's not." "Then what is it?" She didn't answer. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small navy envelope. She stared at it. "What is this?" "A reservation. 2 nights, no phones, no pressure." "Just space." She didn't open it. "Why?" "Because I want to know what we are without the deals, without the contracts, without the land." She hesitated. "And if I say no, then I'll wait until you're ready to say yes." He turned and walked away. She stood there, envelope still unopened, heart louder than it should have been. She was supposed to be hosting a tour. She hadn't planned on being the one falling. The cabin sat beneath a canopy of pine and cedar, perched like a secret between the trees. It wasn't what Lena expected. The exterior was all rough timber and stone, but inside it was quiet luxury, heated floors, soft linens, a fireplace made from river rock. No signal, no distractions, just the sound of wind moving through the forest and the faint hiss of flames crackling at the hearth. Zayden had driven them up from the city that morning, his playlist a mix of unfamiliar jazz and silence. She'd accepted the invitation without overthinking it. But now, standing in the middle of a place that felt carved out of another world, she felt every nerve in her body paying attention. He set their overnight bags by the stairs and turned toward her. "You hungry?" "I could eat," she said, keeping her voice even. He disappeared into the open kitchen and began pulling ingredients from a paper bag. "There's a place on the way up that sells handmade pasta." "Figured I'd try not to burn it." She crossed her arms. "You cook." "I experiment," he said. "Success rate's about 50%. You don't strike me as someone who accepts failure." "I don't," he said, glancing at her. "But I learn from it." She watched as he boiled water, grated cheese, chopped garlic with practiced, unfussy movements. The man who negotiated real estate deals in skyscrapers was now barefoot, tossing pasta in a pan with olive oil and lemon zest like he'd done it 100 times. When they sat down at the small table by the window, she tried the food and blinked. "This is actually good." He poured 2 glasses of wine and lifted his, to high expectations and low odds. She clinked her glass to his. "And the people who surprise us anyway." They ate in comfortable quiet, the kind that didn't beg to be filled. Outside, the trees swayed gently, rain beginning to tap against the windows. She didn't ask about the last woman he brought here. Something told her there hadn't been one. After dinner, they settled near the fire. He sat on the rug, one arm draped over the cushion behind him, eyes flickering in the firelight. She stayed on the couch, legs drawn up, a blanket tossed over her lap. He spoke first. "I was supposed to leave LA last year," She looked at him. Why didn't you? My brother's estate. It got complicated. I inherited more than I wanted: properties, businesses, people expecting me to step into his shoes. I didn't want any of it. You stayed out of obligation. No, he said. I stayed because I saw what he built and I hated most of it. The flash, the spectacle, the hollow rooms. I thought maybe I could turn it into something different. She leaned forward slightly. And have you? Not until now. Lena held his gaze. You think this house in the canyon changes that? I think you do. The air grew still. She unfolded her legs and joined him on the rug without saying anything, her shoulder brushing his. I never planned on any of this, she said softly. I was just trying to sell a house, I know. But every time I tried to keep things professional, you pulled me off script. You needed to be pulled, he said. I just gave you space to be who you already were, she swallowed. I've never had anyone look at me like I was more than a stepping stone. I've never looked at anyone and seen the future until I saw you standing in that driveway. Her breath hitched. He reached for her hand, threading their fingers slowly. I don't want this to be temporary, Lena. She looked down at their hands. You fall fast. I fall real. She met his eyes. Then do it right. He nodded once. Come to Milan with me, she blinked. Milan? There's a design expo. My architect's launching a line there. I want you to meet him. I want you to see what it looks like when vision becomes reality. I have clients, appointments. All of it can wait. Just 3 days. You fly with me, stay in my suite, see the city the way I see it. She hesitated. And after that, we come back and build something that lasts. The rain grew heavier, a rhythmic downpour against the roof. She let her head rest on his shoulder and he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath since the moment she said yes to dinner. They didn't kiss. Not that night. It wasn't about that. It was about trust. 3 days later, she stepped onto a private jet for the first time in her life. He didn't gloat, didn't show off. He just handed her a warm espresso and settled into the seat beside her with a quiet smile. Milan was a blur of cobblestone streets, candlelit dinners, and sweeping terraces that overlooked the Duomo. She met the architect, a brilliant Parisian woman with sharp eyes and sharper sketches, and they walked through exhibits that made Lena's pulse race with ideas. On the final night, Zayden took her to a rooftop overlooking the city. A string quartet played nearby, and the air was thick with the scent of jasmine and rain. He tugged her gently toward the edge, where the lights of Milan glimmered below. I bought the land, he said quietly. In your name, her breath caught. What? The Topanga property, it's yours. I'll fund the build, you'll design it, sell it, keep it, live in it, I don't care. It's the first of many. I want to build a line with you, homes that matter. She shook her head. You can't just give me that. I didn't, he said. You earned it. She stared at him, eyes wide. Why me? Because I fell fast, he said, stepping closer. But I landed where I was supposed to. She reached up slowly, fingers brushing his jaw. This feels like something I'm not supposed to believe in. Then let me prove it. He pulled something from his jacket, a box, velvet, deep blue. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a key. To what? She whispered. To everything we build next. He didn't ask for anything else. He didn't have to, because she already knew she wasn't just the agent anymore. She was the future. And he was already all in. The canyon house rose like a quiet vow from the earth lowlines. Warm stone, cedar beams aged by sun and time, and a glass wall that opened fully to the view. It wasn't just a home now. It was a symbol of everything Lena and Zayden had built together. The construction had taken nearly a year. Lena had overseen every inch, from the reclaimed wood floorboards to the way the light shifted across the mezzanine steps at sunset. Zayden didn't hover, but he was there, with every decision, with every challenge. He didn't just fund the project, he believed in it. And more than that, he believed in her. They hadn't made any announcements, no press releases, no interviews. The house wasn't listed. It wasn't staged for a buyer. Because it already belonged to them, Zayden stood barefoot in the kitchen, slicing blood oranges with a curved knife from a boutique in Florence. Lena leaned against the counter, watching the morning fog curl across the canyon through the open glass. "I got a call from that developer in Aspen," she said. "They want a sustainability-forward design, told them I'd think about it." He handed her a slice. "You want it, maybe. But only if we do it our way." He poured her coffee into the handmade ceramic mug she'd picked out on their trip to Kyoto. "Then we do it our way." Lena took a sip and shook her head. "You're very relaxed for someone who just turned down a $20 million offer on this place." Zayden peeled another orange. "Letting go of things doesn't scare me anymore," she looked at him. "And what does?" He met her gaze. "Losing what matters." The quiet between them said everything. She reached for his hand, fingers warm around his wrist. "I'm not going anywhere, I know." His voice softened. "Neither am I." That afternoon, they drove up the coast in the vintage convertible. Zayden had restored himself an old slate blue Mercedes with seats that creaked and a radio that only played one station. They stopped in a tiny seaside town, the kind with uneven sidewalks and bookstores that smelled like salt. He pulled her into a weathered art gallery tucked behind a cafe, where watercolors hung along the walls like memories. Lena stood in front of one, an abstract wash of earth and sky, and didn't notice him step away. When she turned, he was speaking with the owner, quietly wrapping something in brown paper. She narrowed her eyes. "What did you just buy?" "Nothing important," he said, tucking it behind his back. "Zayden." He leaned down, brushing his lips against her temple. "You'll see when we get home." They arrived after dark. The house glowed from inside dim sconces, low music, the scent of sage and cedar from the fireplace they'd lit before leaving. She kicked off her shoes, curled onto the couch, and watched him disappear down the hall. When he returned, he was holding the wrapped painting and a small, square envelope. She sat up. "Is this another key?" "No." He handed her the envelope. "It's something more permanent." Inside was a deed. Her name, his name, co-owners, no expiration, no exit clause. "You put me on the deed," she whispered. "I built this with you. I want to live this with you." She stared at the paper, heart thudding. "I don't need this to feel secure." "I do," he said. "Not the paper, you." She looked up at him. "And the painting." He unwrapped it slowly. It was the one she'd paused in front of, the wash of colors, the open sky, the rooted earth. "I want it in the front hall," he said. "So when people walk in, they know the first thing we built together wasn't a house. It was a life." Lena reached for him, pulled him down beside her, wrapped her arms around his neck. "I love you," she whispered. He closed his eyes, forehead resting against hers. "I've loved you since the second you looked at me like I was more than a buyer." They didn't need a ceremony. Not yet. The house was their vow. But a week later, on the bluff behind the property, they stood hand in hand with no one watching, just the trees, the wind, and the canyon below, and exchanged simple gold bands. No officiant, no photographer, just the two of them, promising 1,000 silent things. Zayden brushed her cheek with his thumb. "You've made me want roots." Lena took his hand. "You've made me want to stay." They watched the sun dip low, casting the house in golden light. It looked like it had always belonged there, just like them. Years passed. The house became the first of many. Together, they launched a boutique development firm, one property at a time, each with purpose, each with soul. They never took on more than they could shape with their own hands. No flashy ads, no investor boards, just trust and vision and time. They traveled but always returned. In the mornings, Zayden made her coffee before she woke. In the evenings, Lena read him drafts of her memoir out loud, barefoot on the deck, wrapped in one of his sweaters. There were hard days, of course, deadlines, delays. But nothing ever shook what they'd built. One spring, they planted a small grove of olive trees behind the house. A year later, they added a swing beneath the tallest. And on quiet evenings, when the wind settled and the sky turned pink, Lena would curl into Zayden's arms and whisper the same thing every time: "We built this." And he would answer every time the same way: "Forever."